Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, InaneDragon, and tonight we're going to sort through a bit of confused monologue about the perceived struggle between God and science with the so-called Cynical Christian. I bet you thought I was going to keep milking drama from YouTubers people actually like and listen to, didn't you? Alright, Mr. Christian, let's hear what you have to say.
Hey guys, I just wanted to do a few mini clips on some of this scientism stuff. Give me a second here. Okay. Alright, first little...
Only reason I left this in, quick guess? It's that wonderful scare word, scientism. Keep it in mind for later.
Quip I'm going to do is about this false dichotomy between God and science.
Well, there is a dichotomy between God and science, even if it's not the one you're going to argue against. Although, I'd be willing to bet that you completely miss the point that people are making when they talk about the conflicts between God, or religion, or faith, and science. Nonetheless, the great joke here is that you're going to be talking about how you can't examine God through the methodology of science. Basically, a restatement of Gould's non-overlapping magisteria, or NOMA. And if religion and science are mutually exclusive, which is what non-overlapping means, then there's a dichotomy between God and science, full stop. But let's hear what you have to say.
A prime example, and I'll go ahead and try to post one here in a minute. So I'm looking at this meme this is idiotic. I'm sorry, this is stupid. It's a picture here that I'm looking at, and it has a meteor coming towards Earth. Alright, it says the problem. The problem is a meteor. And at the bottom it says solution 1, and it has people praying, and solution 2, it has a rocket, like to go blow up the meteor. And the bottom says, with only one option, do you put your trust in God or science? Okay, this is stupid. Name any situation where there's only going to be one option.
Abort or don't abort. Launch the rocket or don't launch the rocket. Sorry, you said name any situation where there was only one option, and the reality is that every choice you make that appears to have multiple options is actually a set of binary choices. It's not the core point you were trying to make, but then again, you are also deliberately ignoring the fact that this isn't being presented as a real choice. It's a thought experiment. Have you ever studied philosophy? In many thought experiments, you deliberately create a situation that almost certainly would never happen in order to emphasize the details of things you might otherwise take for granted or overlook. So here, the setup deliberately limits your options to an either-or scenario. Let's add unnecessary writers that might make it such an obvious thing, obvious enough even for you. Instead of just prayer, let's say it's pray during the time when you could be building a rocket. And instead of build a rocket, let's say build a rocket during the times when your religion obligates you to stop all activity, possibly to pray. Maybe they're strict Jews and are obligated not to work on Saturdays. But if they take that time off, they won't get the rocket done in time. Perhaps we're talking Muslims. And they can't stop to pray 5 times a day without a similar delay in construction. Look! Real fucking world examples that could conceivably exist. Man, it's like I'm channeling logic and armored skeptic. Long-winded and no citations for anything that I've said so far. I'm going to skip some of the wasted time where you pontificate on fallacies that you don't understand and the nature of memes.
Here was my response to that. So, well, first of all, the whole idea of God versus science is a false dichotomy. Anyway, there is a conflict of interest between creation and evolution. Creation and evolutionism.
Bonus scare word, evolutionism. We'll just pocket that.
Or they'll say evolution and creationism. Notice how they stick the ism on the end just kind of as a way to shame it.
Well, 2 things here. Creationism is an ism. Isms are practices, principles, doctrines, or beliefs, so creationism, being a doctrinal belief in various major religions, is the poster child for being an ism. whereas science and evolution are not, of themselves, practices, principles, doctrines, or beliefs. Which reminds me, if calling something an ism is a bad tactic used to delegitimize a position...
Scientism stuff, creation and evolutionism.
Buddy, you're in serious trouble with yourself. Interestingly, I would have accepted the term Darwinism instead of evolutionism, because Darwinism is a specific set of beliefs regarding the facts of evolution resulting in a particular, albeit outdated, theory of evolution. I have included links to both creationism and Darwinism as explained by Stanford's pretty good Encyclopedia of Philosophy below if you want to see for yourself why they're both isms. But really, the important lesson is the double standard. You slap ism onto everything you don't like, and it's cool. Someone else does it, and they're tearing down your totally legitimate beliefs.
Bottom line, with both of those worldviews, are that creation and evolution are both historical narratives with religious philosophical implications.
No, nyeh, nine, no, nay, meow. Evolutionary theory is not a worldview or a historical narrative. It is the best model that we have of how the diversity of life is present here on Earth, given the assumption that life somehow began. It's the best model because it's supported by every single scrap of evidence that has ever been found in biology, whether it's genetics experiments on both guided and unguided evolution in bacteria, fruit flies, and minnows, the fossil record, or direct observation of the cultivation of many subspecies of animals and plants through domestication. Sorry, you don't get to play this game. One choice is a faith-based assertion that may or may not be true on some level. We can't prove that a deistic god hit the go button, for example. The other is an extremely painfully well-researched, unfalsified, time-tested theory that accurately describes and predicts what we see in the Earth, biosphere, and fossil record. I won't disagree. Evolutionary theory and the facts of evolution have significant religious and philosophical implications. It is true that evolution proves false any religion that claims the world is young unless their god is also a lying bastard who created every appearance of an ancient Earth. But that's true of geology and plate tectonics too. If the world really works in accordance with the known laws of physics, it is roughly 4.5 billion years old. Sorry, but it isn't evolution that's your problem, it's reality. If you're a Young Earth Creationist. You're not a Young Earth Creationist, are you? There are other religious and philosophical implications, but we'll wait and see what you have to say. This is, after all, your show.
The evolutionists want to paint it like creation is all religious and evolution is all science. Well, that's just total crap.
Damn it. Can we get through one sentence without you shoving your head up your ass? Creationism is a religious belief with no basis in evidence. I'm not saying that it must necessarily be wrong, mind you, only that there is nothing currently available which supports a claim of creation except for various religious creeds. Evolution is a time-tested scientific theory with its roots in direct observation. I can imagine, though I have no direct evidence for, people who believe in some warped version of evolutionary theory that they accept dogmatically, but the actual theory of evolution is as well supported as the theory of motherfucking gravity. Creationism is not well supported by anything resembling evidence.
First of all, the ancient Babylonians had myths that all life came out of the waters, okay? The waters of chaos, and that's where in evolution you get the idea that things start up in a form of chaos and then through assemblage they build. These sort of teachings come out of the ancient Babylonian and Egyptian mythologies, which many people believe may have actually traced back to the Hindu tree of life. So those worldviews existed long before Darwin ever showed up on the stage.
Who cares? Myths are not well-supported scientific theories. Don't get me wrong, learning about a mythology other than Christianity is a nice change of pace. But it's complete non sequitur to be bringing up ancient myths when you're trying to debate about a scientific theory. You opened this all by complaining about fallacies, but all you seem to do is commit them. Come on, falsify the theory of evolution or get over yourself. You're going to go on in this vein for a bit, and it's irrelevant, so we're fast-forwarding. I will just say, since it comes up in your rambling, the chain of being is not any part of evolutionary theory. Never has, never will be. You're an idiot arguing against a straw man you pulled out of your own ass.
And they've been held in pagan traditions in various cults and religious sects all over the world. The ancient Greeks kind of borrowed some of that because, you know, the Greeks were kind of obsessed with Egypt. They were not only trading with it, they were also visitors. So some of those religious ideas were actually influenced the Greeks. And so some of the Greeks, like Empedocles, created this idea that, you know, fish came out of the water and turned into human beings. There's this chain of being, right? So this chain of being from chaos to order to complexity to the highest form of evolution. It's an ancient pagan tradition. It's also found in the occultist occult doctrine of becoming.
But that said, Darwin's families were involved in the mysteries, and so they would see the Galapagos beaks, and they would superimpose what they already had kind of, you know, believed to be true onto everything that they had seen. So evolution very much has a religious worldview behind it.
Citation fucking needed, son. Let's be fair, the co-discoverer of evolution, Alfred Wallace, was a spiritualist and a fan of mediums. But Darwin belonged to the Church of England, trained to join the clergy, and there's no reputable evidence which I can find for him being in any way involved with the occult. And we all know that you ain't got any fucking citations. Not that it would be in any way relevant to whether or not evolutionary theory is supported by the evidence and our best model of explaining the diversity of life on Earth. Unlike religion, science admits to no authority beyond evidence, logic, reason, and falsification. Darwin could eat babies for all I care. It wouldn't change the fact that allele frequency varies over time, or that mutations, beneficial, deleterious, and neutral, occur on occasion to produce new alleles within a gene pool. Literally everything you've said is at best interesting historical footnotes, and at worst, a complete non sequitur intended to poison the well without adding a goddamn thing to the conversation. Congratulations! 2 fallacies in 1, you fucking idiot!
So does creation. Creation assumes that there's a creator. I'm a creationist. I'm actually a Young Earth Creationist. And we can have a discussion about that if you want. But
oh, well then, that explains so very fucking much. Sorry if I've lost all respect for you there.
Anyway, it assumes that God does exist. Evolution assumes that God doesn't, or he doesn't need to. But creationism, obviously, he must. And that the world starts in God creates the world perfect, and through man's sin, that the world falls into chaos and disarray. So evolution and creation are actually in opposition to each other on philosophical levels.
That's not entirely true. There are many creationists who accept evolution. The entire Catholic Church, to name roughly 1 billion people as an example. See, for them, God created the heavens and the earth, and he used evolution as a tool to produce biodiversity, though he stepped in to cram a soul down man's throat. There are also creationists who have multiple gods. Arguably, those people claiming all the universe is a giant computer simulation may be atheistic creationists. Our universe is the creation of some computer programmer in the sky, but a mortal computer programmer who has to issue the occasional patch. But, to argue for your particular version of creationism, well, if you don't believe God is a lying sumbitch, it's just wrong. The Earth isn't 6,000 to 10,000 years old, and evolution is a very real fact. Deal with it, or falsify geology, radiology, biology, cosmology, and most of physics in order to get back on track. You're going to waste a bunch of time on hideously simplified ideas about paganism again, completely ignoring anything to do with the actual point. So, yeah, skip.
In creation, God creates the universe order, man sins, the microcosm thing, and then, the universe falls into chaos and disarray, man sin, all creation groans. But in the pagan traditions, the universe starts out in chaos, including mythologies, evolves complexity to, perfectionist chain, this chain of being. So they're opposite models of each other on philosophical grounds, which is why they are constantly conflicting, right? But, taking these two philosophical views, the scientific data, the observations are interpreted through those lenses on both sides of the equation.
But that being said, there's generally no conflict at all between science is what we would call natural philosophy, which is the idea of observing the natural world, trying to make sense of it. How does it work? How does it operate? To achieve mechanistic explanations of things, and the idea that God exists as a metaphysical being, which can never be tested. I mean, you can't, by measurements and, natural... it's kind of ridiculous to try to crush the. You can't measure the infinite. All right, you can only measure the finite. God, by definition, is infinite. So to say we need to be able to measure them and put them in a test tube, I mean, that's kind of stupid because that.
Depends. What are the characteristics of your God? Does he interact in time and space? If so, he should be detectable at the quantum level, if nowhere else. Does he, as promised by Jesus, reliably answer all prayers of the faithful? If so, he should be demonstrable through prayer studies, or there are no faithful. Did he create the Earth some 6,000 to 10,000 years ago without intending to create a thorough evidence trail that contradicts a recent creation? If so, modern science isn't just wrong about evolution, but almost every single other field of study, and all observable evidence says that your God does not exist. Did he shepherd roughly 250,000 Jews out of Egypt where they were held in slavery? If so, then we should find archaeological evidence of a mass migration, historical evidence, both in documentation and archaeology, of the presence of all Jews being kept in slavery in Egypt, and the decimation of the Egyptian army, which we don't. Did he flood the world some 4,400 years ago, wiping out all life except 8 people and an assortment of animals? If so, he doesn't exist. There's no sign that the pyramids, then in the middle of construction, were completely submerged. There's no ability to repopulate all known civilizations of the time. There's no evidence for the flood. Full stop. Any god that is said to have caused that doesn't exist. See? We can put your god in a test tube, and he fails. Hard. Every time. And you're going to ramble meaninglessly again, so zoom, zoom, zoom.
It's like saying, hey, you can't tell me, you need to be able to tell me what the smell of the color, or the shape of the color green is, or how tall tomorrow is, or from what is nothing made, or how does the number 7 smell? These are illogical questions, and so is it to say, to try to poke God with a stick or put him in a test tube. Even the most fierce empiricists, like John Locke and Berkeley, they were empiricists. They assumed God existed just axiomatically. Now, Locke was a bit of a deist, and we're theists, but they just assumed God existed, but they knew that was beyond, the realms of empiricism, but they weren't trying to use empiricism to vindicate God's existence, because they knew that was a ridiculous, that was a ridiculous effort. It couldn't be done. And I believe Hume was one of the 3 in the triad that actually did not believe in God or miracles, which is funny because he uses arguments to try to refute miracles, but I can use the same induction arguments to actually defend the possibility of miracles against people that say,
Buried in all that crap was a somewhat interesting exploration of the opinions of Enlightenment-era thinkers, which, interestingly, is another set of fallacies. This time an appeal to authority. Other than a historical perspective, what do these thinkers even have to do with what we know today about religion and science, son? Nothing. They're dead, and have been for quite a while. Most of them died before Darwin was even around. Mad respect for them. But the opinions of some people at some time is not relevant to anything other than their opinions at that time and the debates that were going on in their day and age. Most of them, by the way, predated the development of Darwin's theory of evolution, never mind the more modern understanding and mountains of evidence. So their relevance to this debate is non-existent.
By the way, there's no way science, for that reason, there's no way science can disprove miracles. Even if miracles didn't exist, which I believe they do, science doesn't disprove miracles. Science doesn't disprove God. You cannot, that you're missing the whole boat. But take science as natural philosophy, the idea that we look at nature, things around us, and we want to assign a mechanistic explanation to it. How does it work at a mechanistic level, okay?
And miracles and gods are either violations of those mechanisms, not that science is limited to mechanistic explanations, mind you, or they're part and parcel of those mechanisms. If the former, we should find some evidence that the laws of the universe have been suspended. We don't. If the latter, we should find particles and forces on the quantum scale that allow for the apparent violations of macro-scale laws. We don't. In short, if a god exists, he's hiding his ass from you. If miracles happen, they're either impossible to corroborate, in which case they're worthless to anyone except those directly affected, or they occur in accordance with the laws of physics and are better described as fortuitous happenstance. Such as dreaming of a set of numbers, buying a lotto ticket based off of your dream, and winning several $1,000,000. You can call it a miracle, I can call it a statistical aberration that had to happen sooner or later thanks to the law of large numbers. You decide.
This is nothing to say that it doesn't have an agent, okay? You could look at a typewriter, or you could look at a radio and say, well, now that I know how this works, I realize that Marconi didn't exist. Or play on a Microsoft and realize, hey, I don't believe in Bill Gates because, you know what, I understand how, the software program works. That's nuts.
You're right. It's nuts. It's also a straw man. What people who understand the science and are atheists because of it are saying is not the utter bullshit you're spouting. What we're saying is this. We have a good explanation for many of the things that were once a mystery and therefore attributed to gods. We have good evidence that many of the core claims of religions, efficacy of prayer, the existence of the soul, historical claims about creation and ancient civilizations, are simply false or horribly unreliable. And because of this, we find your gods pathetic, tiny, and wanting. Prove they exist, because we see no need for them. Nothing you say has any meaning or relevance. You are a pile of fallacy. Do you have any reason I should finish your pathetic video?
All right. I have a telephone now, and I know how it works. So Alexander Graham Bell is all a myth, or, you see what I'm getting at? It's a confusion between mechanism and agency. Dr. John Lennox at Oxford goes over that pretty good. So it's a false dichotomy to begin with. You have this meteor hitting, this meteor coming to hit Earth, and it's choose, either pray or fire a rocket at it, and how about both? And so this was basically my comment, if I can find it. I like the little girl, why not both? And they're all cheering, and there's some freaking funny memes on here.
Fucking hell. This was all about how badly you misunderstood the original point? And you've managed to go on nearly 8 minutes without once addressing anything? You, sir, are a gish gallop. You shit out factoids and random trivia, hoping no one will realize how shallow your thinking is. This has been a waste of everyone's time. I'm InaneDragon, and...
Okay, here's my response to this meme. But this is extremely stupid. God versus science choose. Yeah, no false dichotomy there. And then I point out on a logical basis, it also implies some pretty absurd things like this. Premise 1, I pray. Conclusion, therefore I cannot build a rocket. Alright? Or reversing it. Premise 1, I build rockets. Conclusion, therefore I cannot pray.
Seriously? You took a fucking pictorial made to demonstrate how much of a discrepancy there is between the promises of religion and the rate of delivery versus the proven track record of science to lift humanity out of the fucking gutter, and you can't realize that it's not meant to be taken literally. You, sir, have no idea how to think. You have no connection with reality. You are what is wrong with the universe. You are the weakest link, the lowest common denominator, the dabbler who thinks he's smarter than everyone around him. Try doing what I do. Acknowledge you're an idiot. Embrace your stupidity. Then honestly and earnestly study everything around you on the presupposition that everything which you already thought you knew is wrong.
Who's really... Is there anybody with any intelligence that's going to actually try to defend that position and make that argument? So it's just foolish. It's really foolish. God or science, choose.
Correct. Taking the meme literally is foolish, stupid, idiotic, moronic, childish. So, why did you? It wasn't intended to be taken literally, you moron. It's a damned meme. It intentionally exaggerates an example for the sake of a thought experiment so as to get you to actually think. But you can't think, so you throw up this faux intellectualism and start fapping out quotes from dead men and talk about completely irrelevant shit instead of realizing the point. What has religion gotten society? What has science gotten society? Here's a hint. Which landed us on the fucking moon? Your answer isn't scientist, you're wrong. Which eliminated polio? Your answer isn't science, you are wrong. Which provided the internet? If your answer isn't science, you're wrong again. And which, pray tell, caused the Rwanda genocide? Which established the framework under which Europeans would even entertain murdering 6 million Jews? Which defended South African apartheid? Which established the death penalty for bumping uglies with members of the same sex? If your answer isn't religion, you're wrong. Which, in direct conflict with everything we understand about science, rejected vaccination in the third world? Your answer isn't religion. You are wrong. No dichotomy between science and religion. Your head is so far up your ass, I've got to call the Surgeon General.
Most of the people that do that have no clue as to the history or philosophy of science, both of which I've studied over the last 2 years. And I still got work to do. I still have another 3 months to work on it, and then I should have those tied up. But
time the fuck out. If you're gonna master both, not one or the other, but both, history and the philosophy of science in a sum total of 2 years and 3 months, you fucking arrogant fucking piece of shit. Seriously, people dedicate their entire lives to understanding just one sliver of the ideas and knowledge of either subject, and you're going to be the master of both in just 2 fucking years. I've said it before, but you are what is wrong with our universe, you arrogant lying bastard. Your God has a special place in hell reserved for your ilk if he's real. We are actually done now. I'm not going to bother with the rest of your video for the following reasons. You cite nothing. We're supposed to depend on you as an authority for everything. You focus almost entirely on appeals to authority, pointing to historical figures who had their own opinions, which is completely irrelevant to the point being discussed in the modern day and age. And you just ramble on and on. I thought I was bad, never forming a coherent argument, even if your life depended on it. It's like I've already said, you depend on a gish gallop of bullshit, hoping that nobody will ever double check what you say, piling non sequitur on top of authority, on top of blithering stupidity. There is no meat to any of your video, as should be more than amply demonstrated by now. Do not even try to say that this is an ad hominem, as, if anything, I've been too kind to you in my assessment of your behavior and understanding. Besides, an ad hominem is only a fallacy if it replaces an argument against your points instead of riding along with it. Not that you've had any fucking points. Not that you'd understand this, as demonstrated by your total ignorance of how even internet memes work. I'm InaneDragon, and this has been the Cynical Christian versus Thinking. Clearly, he lost. If you've enjoyed this inanity, consider subscribing for more. As if you should already know, you can do the liking, subscribing, and commenting thing as you see fit. For the truly irrational, consider throwing a few bucks my way on Patreon. It helps keep the channel afloat by offsetting my, production costs. Thank you all, and have a good night.